So, last part, we left off with me talking about Henry. I don't care if he's in his new shape. It's fine. Shut up, boomers. Screw his old shape. I'm sorry. Okay, so Edward's talking to Thomas about the sad story of Henry, or Come Out Henry in the US, or pretty much what every non-Thomas fan says about the sad story of Henry. This is what they basically call the sad story of Henry in a nutshell. The Cast of Amontillado. Like, that's what non-Thomas fans compare the story to. But we're not talking about that. So yeah, Edward talks to Thomas about the sad story of Henry and how he stopped in a tunnel, and Sir Tom had got his slaves and the passengers to try and push him out, and he always makes an excuse, "My doctor has forbidden me to push and pull." Now, I'm pretty sure that's an actual excuse. No, that's not what I meant to say. I'm pretty sure that's a lie, because I can't body shame him. But, yeah. So, now, good God, in both the Railway series and TV series, the sad story of Henry, well, happened after the events of, like, Edward and Gordon. But here, it's told in the past tense, so it clearly takes place before Edward and Gordon. However, I'm fine with that. It doesn't really matter if it takes place before or after. But yeah, I'm fine. I also like the fact that they use James as the engine who tries to push Henry out of the tunnel, because, well, Thomas didn't come to Sodor yet, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a reference on how, in the Railway series, they had that red engine who tried to push Henry out, but failed, and it was the exact same basis as James, but it wasn't James. So, yeah, I like that. So, the next morning, Thomas goes to the Steamworks, which some people say that's a problem in the movie, that the Steamworks exists, but stop complaining. Okay, you're allowed to complain if you want, but I don't care if the Steamworks is in the movie. As long as Victor and Kevin aren't there, then I'm fine with that. I mean, I like Victor and Kevin, but, you know, they clearly didn't come to Sodor before these guys. They came years after them. So yeah, Thomas goes to the Steamworks to be repainted in the NWR colors. Oh yeah, another piece of filler that I forgot to mention. Some people complain. Some people complain about a lot of things in this movie, despite the fact that it's amazing, to me at least. Some people complain that, well, they sometimes usually question about this. Why is Thomas green instead of brown, like the proper E2 LBSC livery is? That makes no sense. No, there's just, some people think it would have been better if Thomas was brown in the movie instead of green, but it's supposed to be a reference to, like, the original model that Audrey created for Thomas, or for Christopher, and Thomas was a teal green. So, yeah, that's why he's teal green in the movie. So, yeah, I honestly like the teal green color better than brown. I sound racist now. But yeah, so Thomas goes to the Steamworks. He's first painted pink. They make a sexist joke on how Thomas is embarrassed and crap. Then he gets painted in, good God, NWR blue, and he's given the number 1. So, he shows off his new paints to the other engines, and Edward tells Thomas that he's the number 1, and he's like, "Does that mean I'm the best?" And then Gordon brings a plot of fan service. That makes no sense. He says that the first number 1 was a coffee pot, and then Edward gives this little speech about how the coffee pot engines used to run the branch lines, and they don't, and he then quickly says that one of them is still in a siding. So yeah, the other coffee pot engines, they're most likely dead, even though Topham is against scrapping engines. Whatever. So Thomas goes to fetch Gordon's coaches. However, he accidentally mistakes Annie and Clarabelle for the express coaches, which is stupid. And yeah, I honestly like the introduction with Annie and Clarabelle in the movie. Instead of introducing them as, like, Thomas's coaches, they're introduced as coaches that already exist. I don't freaking know. So yeah, Annie does some foreshadowing by saying that Thomas will go far, and Thomas is having problems with working in the yard on his own, and I will throw you! Thank you. Okay. So. Oh, God. Stuff falling everywhere. So, Thomas is having trouble working in the yard by himself. James comes in, makes a Shining reference, because his name begins with J. Okay, so yeah. Thomas does some foreshadowing with James's wooden brakes, being all smoky, and, yeah. Another thing that I like in a movie is how Andy and Clarabelle were originally James's coaches. I like that. I like a lot of things in this movie. I'm gonna be saying that a lot. So, sometime later, Thomas, asks Henry, why did he hide in the tunnel because of rain, and Henry is embarrassed, and so Thomas tries to talk some common sense into Henry by saying, water is the stuff that you put in your boiler, so how can you be afraid of it? You can't go around worrying all the time. You can't run away from your feelings, Henry. And, yeah, Henry leaves. So, yeah. We got the 3 railway inches out of the way. Now we're on to Thomas the Tank Engine. So, the first story is, of course, Thomas and Gordon, or Thomas Gets Tricked in the US, which I never understood. Like, why is the American title for Thomas and Gordon Thomas Gets Tricked? I never understood that. Like, what part in the episode is Gordon tricking Thomas? Like, what is it because Thomas thought that he was going to be uncoupled from the express coaches, but Gordon does, like, a whole, ooh, gotcha on him, and then just takes him? Like, really, the episode should have been called Gordon's Vengeance, or Revenge on Thomas, but I guess that would have been too dark for Americans at the time. I'm looking at you, Star Wars. Alright, so, yeah, they retell the story of Thomas and Gordon. Gordon drags Thomas along with the express coaches to teach him a lesson. I'm trying to think of a word that I want to use for Gordon. But I can't curse. Bench move there, Gordon. So, yeah. Oh, yes. Alright. So, Thomas fills up on water. The next day, he's still working in the yard, and he's complaining about how he never gets to go anywhere. So, the story of Thomas's train is about to come up. So, he sees the breakdown trains. These are going to be the breakdown trains for the movie. I was going to use Rocky, but this seems sexier. Why did I just say that? So, yeah. The breakdown trains in this movie, they are alive. They're called Judy and Jerome. So, yeah. The breakdown cranes are alive in this movie, and I honestly like it. I don't mind. And, yeah, they're kind of crazy. But, you know, they're fun. So, instead of Thomas the driver and fireman talking to him about what the breakdown cranes are, because I'm pretty sure the drivers and firemen lost their voices. Thomas the driver and fireman lost their voices, I don't know, some time ago. Whatever, I'm going off topic. Andy and Clarabelle tell Thomas what they are, and they tell him not to touch them, so he won't. James comes in, and they do more foreshadowing with his brakes and all. And yada, yada, yada. So, now we're on to Thomas's train, or A Big Day Out for Thomas, and the US dub. I don't know why I'm even saying the titles anymore. So, yeah. Henry's ill, so Thomas goes to fetch his coaches. They wait and wait, but Henry never shows up. And when Topham's like, you ought to find another engine. There's only Thomas, sir. We get this funny, cute meme face on Thomas's face. So, yeah. He shows them to take the coaches, and I honestly like this retelling of A Big Day Out for Thomas than the one that the TV series did, because it makes more sense. Like, why did Thomas just abandon the coaches? Like, really? It's more believable in The Adventure Begins because he hears a guard's whistle, which was for Edward, so he probably thought it was for him. That makes more sense than just leaving off without any explanation. Like, what? Because maybe someone didn't couple him properly? I don't know. I haven't seen the season 1 version of the episode in a while now. So, Thomas abandons the coaches. People try to stop him, but it's no use. Then he comes up to a signal box. The signalman tells him what's going on, and Thomas somehow realizes that he left the coaches behind, which I don't know how he can see that he's not pulling anything, because he can't turn his head to see that he's pulling nothing. Or whatever. So yeah, Thomas gets laughed at by every single engine at the shed that night, even Edward, who quickly shuts his trap because that's his friend that he's laughing at. Yeah. I want to go places. I want to do things. I want to see the world. So yeah, Edward decides to let Thomas take his goods train the next morning, and you know that gets Thomas all kitty excited, and yeah, so he's pulling troublesome trucks. You know, the creepy little turds that want to kill the trains for some reason. So yeah. Thomas takes them, and then we get a remake of the song Troublesome Trucks from Season 7. Some people don't mind the song being in the movie. I don't mind the song being in the movie at all. Some people kind of complain, saying that they should have, like, just, I don't know, redid the music that was used in the original Thomas and the Trucks episode. Or, you know, just, I don't know, remade a different song from the classic series. I can't remember what people be saying. So yeah, Thomas takes the train. It's predictable. He pulls him up the hill. Then they push him down. And then he nearly has an accident. Topham is cross with him. And yeah. But unlike in the books and the TV series, Sir Tom Manners also crossed with Edward, which makes sense because it was Eddie's fault for having Thomas take his train in the first place. So really, this is your fault, Edward. I'm sorry. So yeah, Edward has to work with Thomas in the yard until, you know, Thomas learns what he knows, and yeah. So Thomas is fetching coaches for Henry. He pauses for a moment to think about who these coaches are for, and then he knows, so he goes off to Shed 17 to find out the truth. Oh wait, that's the wrong story. I'm just kidding. He goes to Timid Sheds to find Henry. Good God, I have trains all over the place. So, Thomas goes to Timid Sheds to knock some sense into Henry, telling him that rain is nothing to be afraid of. But I don't care. I blame Henry. He is the reason why I'm afraid of rain. I don't like getting wet. I blame you, Henry. So, I'm just kidding. No. So, Thomas knocks some sense into Henry, and now Henry's no longer afraid of rain because it doesn't spoil his paint. So, yeah, Henry's dancing in the rain, like, yay! So, yeah, I like that. That was a sweet scene. So, the next few days, Edward's teaching Thomas everything that he has to know about working in the shunting yard, and Thomas is finally getting the hang out of it. Then we get to the climax of the movie. I guess it's the climax of the movie. I don't know. Now, this is the part of the movie that I think everyone loves, including me. Because there's like over a dozen remakes of this on YouTube. Like, seriously, go search it up. So, we now enter the Thomas and the Breakdown Train story, where James is a runaway, but unlike in the classic series, which I hated, okay, I didn't hate the Thomas and the Breakdown Train episode, but something that always annoyed me is how, in the original episode, James just, like, zooms by Thomas, and legit, less than 15 seconds later, there's already a call that James has come off the line. Like, that was way too quick. I get that, you know, the episodes were like 4.5 minutes at the time, but still, how is it that James is like, help, help! I like to teach the silly trucks a lesson. And then, less than 15 seconds later, he crashed, and people already know about it. Like, yeah. In The Adventure Begins, Thomas actually does something. He goes after James, and they start doing the Unstoppable movie all of a sudden. I'll talk about this part of the movie in the next part because you should know. I'm not gonna say it again. I'm not gonna say it. So yeah, I'll talk about the rest of the movie in the next part. hopefully my last part of this review.